folks. Today we're just going to have a look at the W151 Interpump and replace the valve kit on the head. This is a middle of the range pump, working around about 150 bar, and that's around about 2000 psi. Maintain that pressure and performance. We're going to change the valve kits in the head. We'll take it over to the bench and we'll show you how to do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is break the actual caps off. So these are, it's into a cast head. We've got to be a little bit careful here, but we're going to put the socket on. It's a 30mm socket onto a 1/2" breaker bar. Always keep them nice and flat because you've got quite a shallow nut on there. So you've got a hand on the top and break them off like that. 1, 2, 3. So, okay, so now I can just get my ratchet, take all these off. So that's the third one. So now using some long nose needle pliers, I'm just going to gently take each one out, and you can normally just waggle them around and they'll pop out like so. So I put them separately to the new kit that I'm putting in. There's the second one. That's the third one. So in this case I can get in with my pliers and just pull out the O-ring. Number 1. Oops. Number 2. Number 3. There we go. So while you're in here, you've got to just check to make sure there's no rust, any kind of swarf or anything in here. If you can, blow it out with an airline, or probably get a rag in there and clean it all out. Make sure it's nice and clean before you replace the new ones. So we've got brand new O-rings. So assume we've cleaned that out. Push them in and just make sure they're seated right at the bottom below the actual outlet for the water. They're all nice and square. And now we can put the valve in, obviously with a metal pad down. Spring it down. And just make sure they actually locate. So you've got a little shoulder for the O-ring to sit on there. Just make sure that's dropped into the center of the O-ring. So I'm going to put the caps back on. So I'm going to hand tighten these first. The 30mm socket. Just till they're nipped up like that. And these just have a torque setting of 130 Newton meters. So we'll put the torque wrench on, we'll set that, and then click that off. Okay, so we've got the torque wrench set. Again, put your hand on the top, make sure it's flat against the nut because it's a shallow nut, and we'll just pull it till it clicks. That's nice and tight. There we go. And that's basically the top part of the head done. So what we're going to do now is turn it 90 degrees to do the bottom 3. And we'll do that now for you. Okay, so we've turned the actual pump over, just keeping it flat. Just again, same system, just make sure your head's hand on the top, holding it flat, and just crack them off. Yeah, nice and easy. And there you go, that one like that. So we can Yes, take them out. Set these to one side. And again, we can just, you've got a better view of the actual valve now, so just make sure that's out. You can check the spring, just make sure that's intact there. They sometimes break. You don't want any debris in there. So again, now we can take the mooring out. So again, you just make sure there's no swarf debris in here. Give it a good clean out with a rag. There's nothing in there, nice and clean. So you always use your fingers to put these back in. You don't really want to use anything sharp. So they're nicely seated right at the bottom. And now we can put the valve kit back in. So obviously the shoulder sits inside the O-ring, so just make sure it's sitting nice and square. You do have to actually physically push them in to get them seated like that. If they're sitting out, they're not in properly, so I'm just kind of rolling them around just to make sure they're in. That's good. Now the cap's back on. Turn them in by hand because they are relatively soft. And again, I can tighten these up till they're nipped up. So we can put the torque wrench back on, still set. And again, just make sure your hand's on the top. And there you go, that completes the basic sort of strip and valve swap of a Interpump.